Welcome to Women Winning Divorce with your host, Heather Quick. Heather brings over 20 years of law experience that advocates and empowers women to achieve happier and healthier lives. Each week, we provide knowledge and guidance on different aspects of family law to help lead women through the difficult and emotional legal challenges that they are facing. Listen in as she discusses issues including divorce, custody, alimony, paternity, narcissism, mediation, and other family law issues to provide insight on the journey of women winning divorce. Welcome to the show. I'm Julie Morgan, and I'm joined by your host, Heather Quick.
Heather, how you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I almost said, Heather, what's up?
I like it. I can tell you're ready today. Fire up.
Yes, I'm fired up today. So today we're talking about modifying the divorce decree. Now, we've talked about making changes before, and I'm like, is this possible? And I know it's possible, but it's difficult. So let's talk about this. Can the divorce be modified?
Some things, yes. That's one of those, favorite lawyer answer. It depends. And it does, because there are some things in this, explain, I know it's going to make sense, like support, especially child support. If it's going to be a long period of time, well, it seems logical. Oh, that might need to change up or down, whatever, because it's based on income. And sometimes alimony may be subject to go up or down. Again, that would be on the specifics of that. And sometimes you want to modify things as it relates to the kids. We recently talked all about parenting plans. So those are like just some of the off the top things that may be able to be modified. We're going to get into that obviously more as we go through. And then we can kind of talk a little bit about what things cannot be modified. But the most common, thinking money, time with the children, things with the children, because a lot of that is one, of course, with the children based on best interests of the kids, and that will evolve. And sometimes things are different, and same with money.
Okay. All right. So it just depends. Heather,
Yes.
I'm getting used to that answer, but I'm not necessarily sure I like it.
I hear you. I've heard that before. I get it. It's not that I'm trying to be evasive, but you know me, sometimes I give an answer and I go on and on. You're like, whoa, you just kind of went a little too far and I didn't ask that much. You just are looking for a yes or no. And they can't always give you just straight yes or no.
Oh, no. Yeah, I understand that. So is
So
it
you'll have to talk to the rest of the individuals out there. Say, hey, you can't always have a yes or no.
Yeah. Don't we wish that was the case? All right. So is it difficult to get it changed?
Yes, there's a standard. And that's where, without getting too complicated, but there is a legal standard. And that legal standard is a substantial change in circumstances since the divorce was finalized. So if you think about it, it's got to be a change, and usually needs to be a period of time, because I know in your mind you might be like, well, we disagree. This just happened last month, but things have changed. Pretty unlikely that they've changed enough to meet that legal standard, if that makes sense. So you're looking at, hey, there probably needs to be some time, and we can get into examples of substantial change of circumstances, but that's what we're thinking. I want to, modify, I want to change agreement. Well, what's happened in the lives of you, your former husband, your children, that would be a reason. And then two, how much time has passed. And those are, I would say, the initial, kind of hurdles we need to get over and discuss. And that's what the attorney is. That's what I ask you. That's why. I understand what you want. I need to understand the why and what is different now.
Okay, so I can't say that, hey, this is something that I forgot.
Because very often it should be, and most likely you didn't anticipate this, would be happening. So, for example, it's easy to use children because there's a lot of just benchmarks that happen, and they turn 5, they're going to go to kindergarten or 6, but the kindergarten is coming, and when they're a senior in high school, graduation is coming. And so if you're basing it on something that happens in everybody's life, that they're a certain age. And then depending on how long ago it was, that's part of the legal hurdle is, well, was this something that you anticipated happening? And if so, there's just not as much, it's going to be more difficult is the easiest way to say that.
Okay, so there are certain things that we can anticipate. So you can't just say that, oh, this happened and I forgot that it was going to take place.
And now sometimes that does happen, because particularly when people do these divorces on their own, or they really, um, well, yeah, there's a lot of things I could say about that, but many times they're just agreeing to get it over with. And that can really backfire, of course, because um now you're stuck in something that you really didn't want. So I know it seems that's just a very short-sighted way of looking at things, and can make it more difficult in the future, even though sometimes when you're in the divorce, it's hard to think about 3 5 years down the road. That's why the attorney can be so helpful, to
Okay,
help you think about things a little bit further down the road.
okay. And so you actually just addressed exactly what I was going to address. This is one of the reasons why having an attorney is so important.
Right. For, thinking a little bit more long term,
Mhm.
because things will change, and to the best, we cannot anticipate everything as much as we try, but, and it is never, obviously our goal for our clients are that you don't have to go back to court, that we've just given you enough of a plan and you guys can move forward. However, it does, sometimes just you have to. So therefore, yeah, it's important to do that, so that things that we could realistically anticipate maybe are addressed.
Okay. All righty. And that's why you spend so much time on things like the parenting plan and stuff like that. That's why you spend so much time. So hopefully you don't have to revisit it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
All righty. So you may have touched on this a little bit. What are some of the reasons for a modification?
So, times with the reasons we talked about needing, a substantial change. Well, let's talk about these kind of changes. It's going to be a job. Like many times your job, let's say whoever's paying alimony, your ex-husband's paying alimony, he loses his job. Just because he starts making a lot more money, that's not the basis to change. Um, your need going up substantially. Maybe you lost your job, something happened to you, you're receiving alimony, you have a higher need. That would be a reason to increase your alimony. The child support may, with the kids, they just because they get more expensive, but again, that's going to be based on jobs. Or let's say there's a relocation, and that's just a whole nother show, but you get a job offer somewhere else. That is a very just a very specialized pretty much modification, because essentially, hey, you're trying to relocate, lot of legal burden and things to prove in order to get that. And that's very generally time sensitive. You get an offer for a new job somewhere else. So those are like some of your, and you're going to hear a lot, or people listening will be experiencing. Changing the time sharing of one parent to another is difficult. That can certainly happen, and there can be reasons for that. And as kids age, and I will see that usually a new marriage will maybe affect the relationships and things that go on. And as children become teenagers, as I know firsthand, they become extremely smart and they know a lot, and they really want to have more input into what they're doing. That can affect, like, in you saying, oh, hey, maybe we should go try to change this.
Okay. I want to touch on one thing, but I'm not going to because that's going to lead us down a whole nother road. And I really want to touch on this, but I'm not. I'm going to keep it to myself. Alrighty. So there are essentially two ways to modify. What are those two ways?
Oh, well, and the both you both come to an agreement, and you write it down and agree. And that happens a lot. And a lot of those I don't even see, obviously, because they don't come to us, or they are thinking ahead. They're saying, hey, we agreed to this. Will you write this up so that this is something, that is legally binding and enforceable? Or you can't agree, so then you file a petition for the modification, and we go through the court process, and we can get into a little bit of that, like what does that look like?
Okay. Alrighty. You know what? I'm sorry. I have to go back because it's just going to bug me. So you're saying if, let's say, if my ex-husband, he gets another job and it pays substantially more, that's not in and of itself a reason to go to court and get things modified as far as alimony is concerned, or really, especially child support.
Um, so um, yes, in and of itself, alimony is based on your need before his ability to pay. Very often, the original alimony does not meet your need. So let's be clear there. So there may still be an opportunity, but it's not oh gosh, he just got a massive promotion, I'm going to get more money. Not automatically. We would really need to look into the facts of your particular case.
Okay, alrighty. And we're going to get into alimony and child support as well as custody and relocation. We're going to get into that later. But boy, I really wanted to know the answer to that question because it was just going to really bother me. Alrighty. So let's say if this is something that we can't agree on, right? What happens then? You said you have to go through the whole court process. Walk me through that and tell me how that looks.
Okay, so we have to, just like I got to tell you, it's really very much like the original divorce from a perspective of we have to file a petition. He's going to need to be served. We have the time frame to wait, and it can sometimes even be more in depth than an original trial because you've got a higher burden of proof. To get divorced, you just get divorced. Now, where it comes really in the burden of proof is the need for alimony and sometimes some of that financial, but now we've got to prove the change. If it's all financial, a little less of a hearing and proceedings, but if it's more with the children, you're going to have more witnesses. You are going to have probably a more in-depth hearing and or trial at the end, and mediation is going to be ordered again. So if you go back, like, hey, what's the process? This is doing the same type of steps, different, ingredients in that whole recipe to make it work, but the same types of steps. If that is a good analogy, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it does. It makes sense. So the same steps that you have to go through in terms of the divorce, but it could be longer, or this basically this is what I got from you. It could take longer because there's a higher burden proof.
Correct. I mean, now we just have we have a level, we have something we have to prove that we didn't have to originally. And it's like the first thing we have to overcome. When we talk about legal stuff, and you hear the burden of proof and who has that, okay, we have to prove this substantial change in circumstances, which is, what we would call a legal term of art. Like it's not what we mean here. Like, what's substantial? Like, it's more of you really have got to show that. And then we get into all the facts of what we want. We have to show that change. So yes, it's different in that it's going to be a little bit more complex.
Okay.
Generally speaking, as a whole generalization, yes.
Mm. And so I'm looking at this list of substantial reasons for change. One is remarriage or cohabitation.
Okay, that's specifically to alimony. Now,
Ah,
so think about this. Like this, let's go back in time, like 20 years. You have alimony and you're like, and it just says until, you die or remarry. So then you're like, well, duh, I'm not going to get remarried, but we're going to act like we're married. We're living together. So then the law changed and created this cohabitation to say, listen, if you're basically living with somebody as if you were married, but not getting married because you're getting alimony, then that would be a basis to terminate the alimony. But it's quite the burden to, so, but yeah, trust me, if we're getting permanent alimony for people, not that, as I'm against like, love, but like, hey, wait some time, enjoy the alimony before you go do this all over. So,
I could just, you know what? This is what I see. You said the burden of proof, and that's difficult to prove. I see someone like a private detective going through trash, trying to find the names on letters and that type of thing. That's what I see. It's kind of exciting to me. I probably got really excited when I said that, but that's what I see.
well, and that is exactly what happened because you now have to prove something that you really don't have firsthand knowledge of. You aren't living in the same house anymore. You ought not use your children as spies. If they, even if they're adult children, and you may ask people who can give you information, but just what they tell you when you ask them a question versus what they may testify to generally are very, very different. So, and does it meet the burden? So yes, those are absolutely what you've envisioned with the PI and staking them out. How many nights are they spending the night or whatever? Yes.
Oh, wow, that would be an interesting job to have. Oh, man, it really would be. I mean, think about it. You're listening to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. When we return, we're going to talk about alimony and child support. Stay with us. Welcome back to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. Alrighty, so Heather, we talked about some of the substantial reasons for change. We touched on this a little bit, but let's go more in depth. Can alimony be changed?
Yes. Yes. It absolutely, and that's one of the it's a very common thing for that to happen after many years of alimony because of somebody's retirement, of somebody's loss of a job, of maybe as the recipient getting remarried, or you getting a really good job and them saying, hey, she doesn't need this much money anymore. So yes, that can absolutely be changed. You saying I have a greater need. Lots of reasons. Absolutely. It's again, it's going to be quite the endeavor. A lot of on both sides, but yes, it absolutely can happen.
Okay. But as you said before, it has to be something that was not anticipated.
Correct. And not voluntary. So, you can imagine this being said, oh, I'll quit my job before I pay you alimony and I'll go to jail before I pay you until you're in jail. And then you change your mind quickly. But if you are voluntarily unemployed, meaning, hey, I just, gonna avoid this by losing my job. And that is not a basis. So you are going to be stuck with an order that will put you in contempt and create arrearages. So, in women, I think they know the type of people they're married to, and they understand like he might very well do this. Well, he might. So have another source, like be prepared to take care of yourself if in fact they really do that. Now, they may not pay and create this huge arrearage, and that it follows them around. And many times we have been able to get that money for you down the road, but it can be extremely frustrating is probably just an understatement. You're relying on a person who is just not a nice person, who's a difficult person, and who is wanting to make your life miserable. So they can do all that stuff. And, we have the remedies we have. but that's all we got. You know what I mean? Like we have what we have, but they are still the person they are. Will they go to jail? Could the court put them in jail? That's possible, but not always. Not going to put money in your pocket. Generally, might feel good for a moment, but
That's some vindictive stuff to self-sabotage because you're sabotaging yourself trying to sabotage someone else.
yes, and that's why the majority of the time, those types of statements are baseless threats. They're from a bully threatening you, that kind of stuff. And we've had our shows on the narcissist. The good thing is, or the plus side for, if you're receiving alimony from the narcissist, is their image is too important and their money and everything's too important to like just sabotage themselves. They're not necessarily going to sacrifice themselves just to get back at you. They'll come up with other ways. But so yes, I mean, and that can happen, no doubt about it.
Mm. Now, we touched on this earlier, but we got to go here again. What if a woman knows her ex just got a big promotion or an inheritance? Can she ask for more alimony?
She can, and I would just tell them, let's evaluate this really clearly, and mostly let's really evaluate your financial situation so I can tell you. I mean, and that's not just like an answer yes. It's an in-depth, looking at, okay, what is your situation so that we can advise you as best as possible, right? On far as if we think it's worth it. Or you decide if you think it's worth it. It's like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. I think we have an opportunity to prove your need, because you always want to do a risk benefit analysis before you do a modification of any kind, to the extent you can. I think that's important. You need to make the decision as the client. And then it's like, hey, but if we get you, say, $500 more a month. Okay. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but you're probably going to get alimony for, another, let's say 10 years. So that's, ends up being $60,000. So, okay, that's worth it. Kind of like with child support. It's like, well, how much do you have? Or is there an arrearage? Does this make sense? Because, and I'm jumping ahead, but there are reasons why you need to do things when you do them, and try to talk to an attorney who can give you more of a long-term view.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That makes sense. So different types of alimony have different rules on modification, right?
Yes. Yes, they do. Because some might not be modifiable.
Okay. So wait a minute. When you're coming up with this, you're helping your client, do you try to get ones that are modifiable as opposed to not modifiable because you just never know what's going to happen?
It depends.
There you go again.
So
There you go
I
again,
know,
Heather.
I had to do it, but because that's going to be very fact specific, and we're going to talk, as your legal team, as your attorney, we're going to talk to you about that. That's like, back when we are like, it's important to understand your goals. It's important to have a really overall good picture, because maybe there's a reason that a non-modifiable term of alimony benefits you. And it, same with the other side, that might be very advantageous to them. So we kind of just want to have a whole picture. And, when hey, that's really something he's going to want. Well, what do we want kind of in exchange during a negotiation or mediation? So yes, there can be a lot of reasons for wanting that. And, for as the husband paying it, he wants to know, hey, this is the amount I'm going to pay, and for this many years, boom, you can't go and take me back. Okay. So that gives him some certainty. So if you're giving him that certainty, maybe you're getting a little more in exchange for that, or some other assets. So a lot of times, that's where I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but yes, there are a lot of reasons to do that based on people's individual facts.
Okay. Alrighty. So And this is a quick one because we touched on it in the first part of the show. If a woman starts living with someone new, does it affect alimony?
Usually, if it's what they call supportive relationship, so if it's a romantic relationship, and as well, it's really is a romantic relationship in and of itself. It used to be it had to be like financial as well. So yeah, it's basically romantic relationship.
Wait a minute. So that person could not even be contributing to my finances, but just because it's a romantic relationship, you won't continue my alimony.
Yeah, so it used to not be that way. And so then there was a case that came out that where basically she was receiving alimony and she was like the sugar mama and had this young guy who didn't do anything. But she's like, well, yeah, I'm getting alimony. Move on in. I'll support you too. And so then once that case got reviewed and appealed and everything, they're like, no, 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 no. That is not right either. So that's how it kind of comes down to it.
Oh,
Because
that makes sense.
alimony is, it's very defined and for what reasons, and that would be why.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Okay, I didn't think about that. I was just thinking I probably wouldn't be anybody's sugar mama. So that's why I didn't think about
Yes.
that. Yeah. All right. What about child support? What are the reasons for that being modified?
So really, the new number based on income needs to be at least 15% more or $50. So whichever one is higher than what it was. So for example, if the payment was 1,000 a month, the new support needs to be, 1,150 or higher or lower than $850. So that one can be a little harder because you don't really get your ex's pay stubs. You're not really sure. So you're going to be relying on, what seem to be external signs of increased income.
That's where we get the private investigator, right?
Yes, yes, going through the trash.
But another thing I think about also is you possibly have a sign from the kids. The kids, they go for a visit and they get some extra stuff. They go on extra trips, and you're like, this is not something didn't right about this. That's another way.
Yeah, there's usually some apparent stuff, and you're like, yeah, I think there's more money. And again, that's why we do the analysis.
Okay. Okay. Hmm. Oh, Heather, I know I keep going back to that private investigator, but I'm telling you, that would be interesting. Quite interesting. So, reasons for modifying child support. What if he loses his job?
And that's so, on child support, he has an obligation to find something else. And yeah, that's where, and that'll be a very factual, evaluation in their proof. Because usually you have a job at a certain level, you are capable and able to earn that amount. If say the company downsized, so you didn't have anything to do with it, and the only other thing you can get. So again, there's a lot of facts he's got to prove in order to do that. Just in your job and not, trying to find another one, that's not going to be sufficient to modify that amount.
Okay. What if the child's expenses goes up or down?
That's going to depend. As far as I know, you hate that, but remember we talked about, I feel like we did on a prior show, they now are driving and they have a car and there's auto insurance. I'm telling you, that doesn't come into the play with child support. But if they need, like, this is one that's really can't happen. They can have a need for more medical expenses or care, or they need really more school assistance, like some serious tutoring and some extra things that aren't discretionary.
Mhm.
And, in this day and age, depending where you live, many people would argue it's not discretionary to give them a car, but yet it is. We know that. We do know it's easier on the parent who has them. And with that comes some expenses. That's not going to really get into child support. But medical issues, potentially tutoring, educational things, that would be things that would be very relevant and can be included in that child support number.
You know what? I have this another question. Is it possible, because as children, as they get older, their needs change. So is it possible to say from the ages of, I don't know, 6 to 11, it's this amount, and then from 11 to 18, it's another amount?
Unfortunately, no. Although in reality, their needs are much more expensive. As you know, the way I really have seen in my experience, okay, when you have children until they're really in school, their childcare is so very expensive. It really is. And then you go through a period where they are in school. And so then usually, even if you need before care, after care, it's just substantially less. But then you get into, then you have like, you kind of get used to that during the year. And then you've got summer care, which can be extremely expensive. And then all of a sudden they start getting bigger and grow all their clothes and eating you out of house and home. And those are realistic expenses and costs. And there are ways to include that in, a request for an increased child support. Usually that would be something I would say, hey, we're going to add that on. That's going to be maybe the primary reason. There's going to be other reasons we're going back to court, that then we're going to include that. That in and of itself may not be enough, just that they eat so much and are growing out of all their clothes. I mean, it is, but for the cost, again, that's just a risk benefit analysis to determine, hey, what does this look like? How likely are we to succeed?
It seems like with inflation, and we're right here at the end of this particular segment, but it seems like with inflation, that should be another factor, another thought. But we can talk about that in the next segment. We are listening to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. When we return, we're going to talk about custody and relocation. Stay with us. Welcome back to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. So, Heather, custody and relocation. Oh, boy. If someone moves, if one of the parents move, I mean, how easy is that? I believe I remember discussing this just a little bit at another point. How easy is it to modify things if one of the parents has to move?
It's a process, and it's not, I wouldn't say that it's easy. I would say that we have done a lot of it on the relocation. So you have a lot of elements to prove. There are a lot of things, and many times it's not the one thing. We've got to really look at the whole picture. And if you have an opportunity for a job, promotion that includes a relocation, it's just really important to talk to an attorney as soon as possible to really understand, because you can really, really harm yourself if you leave the jurisdiction with your children without the agreement of your ex or court approval. To where, I mean, if your ex wants to, they can go to court, get a pickup order, and show up on your door and with a court order saying, give me the kids back. I'm taking the kids back. So it's really, really important that you follow the steps on this legal advice. And even if he agrees to it, make sure it's a binding agreement, because I just don't wish that on anybody, I don't wish that on children. I know parents do, not very smart things often, and don't consider the consequences. And that's just, put your children through unnecessary turmoil and involvement, with the authorities. So And that really is, you need a court order or the other parent to agree if you're going to move more than 50 miles away from where you are. So it's, tightening, but the basis of that is when you move more than 50 miles away, it's going to impact the time with the kids, is the theory behind that. And it's going to impact travel back and forth with how often, you're going to see the kids. So that's really where that comes from.
Okay, more than 50 miles. I wonder how they came up with that number.
I don't know. I had no telling. I guess they figured, hey, 100 is too far. You can get pretty far away. And I'm sure it was based on looking at the geography in general, Florida. Okay, kind of the way it's mapped out. There are a lot of nearby cities, but once you go 50 miles, like you're quite a way away.
Okay. And you know what? I press fast forward all the way to relocation, and we're supposed to talk about child custody first and then relocation. So let's kind of go back. What is the reason that custody may be modified?
It comes down to the best interest of the child, and therefore, so you want to change. You've got a parenting plan, and everybody's got their time. It's going to come down to the children. So one of the parents isn't following the parenting plan and say they're not exercising their time. You're just like, they're not paying child support, which is why they argued to have, or they're paying a reduced amount of child support to have all this time. They're not exercising it. I want it to go back the one way or another because I can't rely on them. The children, are disappointed. They expect to see their father. They're not. Your ex has an addiction and it's affecting clearly their life and the kids. Okay, that is a reason to move, to modify custody, maybe even have it supervised for a period of time. And this kind of goes hand in hand. If you believe the child's being neglected, that could be tied into that, as well as your concern for their physical, emotional safety. This can be due to an addiction, maybe another parent, a step parent, somebody they married, or a girlfriend, or, who they're leaving your child with, could be their education. If one person is, when they're with that other parent, they're late to school, they miss school, they don't do their assignments, those are a lot of things. And then in the end of the day, maybe the child's needs have changed. All of these things, any one of them, or usually there's more than one at one time, it's what I would, it's not just what you say about all these. We need evidence. We need people who are independent, who can testify as to these things, including a therapist for your child, teachers, doctors, just so many other witnesses that really can provide objective testimony for a good understanding of what's going on.
It seems like with some of those, the burden of proof would be very difficult. It would be very high to prove some of those things. For example, um, well, child's education, I guess the report card could show that. But oh, consistently late, well, there's proof of that too. So maybe not that one, but it seems like some of those it would be difficult to prove.
It is, and it's usually not just one thing. It's really like, one brick isn't going to really help you with the wall, or one concrete block, but you just have to take all the different pieces. And that's really what we do as attorneys, is like, tell me more. And then I can say, okay, this one thing on its own, I don't think that's enough, but you've told me all these other things. So if we can now put all these together cohesively to show the court, like in its entirety, there's a lot of stuff going on that's not in the child's best interest. That's how you prevail on that.
And at this point, it seems like you should also make sure that you're keeping good records.
Always. Yes. Yes.
You said always. Would you say that that is really the answer? As once you're in this is something that you're going through as far as the divorce is concerned. That's really, you need to start keeping good records at that point.
Yes. And it can be as simple as, I keep a calendar. It doesn't, I would say a handwritten is best. and you just make notes and keep up with it, because it's very difficult to remember 6 months ago, that Friday, that Saturday, what happened, or was it the weekend after that happened? Because once you start having problems, you need to, start really documenting if you're seeing this go on, and it just keeps happening, then it's important to keep those kinds of records. And definitely if your ex is not exercising the time,
Mm.
that's going to be one of the biggest things that we want proof of with some accuracy if we're trying to change time sharing or a relocation. Like, those are really important things that are going to come into play.
So let's go back to relocation. I kind of got ahead of myself earlier. Let's go back to relocation. Let's say that I've remarried and my spouse gets a job in another place, right?
Mhm.
That alone isn't a good enough reason to modify things.
It's not in and of itself, and that can be extremely difficult, obviously, for families. And yes, and I think that there might be a misconception that that's easy. Of course, like, we have to go. It's not. You better talk to an attorney, and we need to really analyze the situation. For you, your child, and their relationship with their father, it just doesn't, it's not that easy. And you need to know that going in.
Oh, that has to be stressful. That has to be because that's causing a strain on your new relationship.
Oh my goodness, without a doubt. And it's causing a strain. And and I gotta say, frankly, with your new spouse and your child, that's so unhealthy and not good. And then, and I agree, and I think all of that is horrible, but I also agree that if you're in a situation with, like, super duper involved dad, you need to know that's not happening. Or if you are in a, 50-50 time sharing and it going well for the child, it's not happening. So, I think sometimes, and because I completely get it, but I just think that, and I'm all about, the second relationships going on with your life, but you have this child for this short amount of time when you really look at life overall, this 18 years where, hey, if you have an ex, you've got to work things out. And to do something like that without thinking it through, and then marrying somebody who's active duty military, who's going to go all over and think that you're just going to follow them, that's really not going to happen. And you need to think a bit more in depth, maybe before you do it, which probably nobody does. And really understand the implications of that and be prepared, because the court will say you can go wherever you want, but this child's not leaving. They're staying with the other parent. And that can be so difficult, but frankly, you did it. You created it all. So you're not a victim. You need to just be smart, and you should be thinking about these things. And hopefully this helps people think about them. Because then they're very upset and they want to be a victim, and we can't change the law and we can't move mountains. There are a lot of great cases that we are able to succeed on in relocation, but like the one I just gave you is not necessarily one of those. And I get it, because you've now have this whole new relationship life and all that, and you do want to go. But it might not be possible.
Okay. So are there any good reasons for relocation?
There are so many great reasons. And really, in a job tends to be a primary one, but a lot of times, and I said this about the military, because many people end up here with no family. And then they do stay, or now they're feeling stuck.
Hmm.
And their ex, maybe still, and I'm not, it could be any industry. So many industries are coming on here. So I'm just using the military as an example, because traditionally the individuals move and people love it once they get to Florida. But when you have small children and you don't have much of a support system and family, that's usually a primary reason you want to move back. And you want your children to experience a lot of ties to grandparents, cousins, aunts, and uncles, and that will help you work and help you with childcare. Like there's a lot of benefits for the child that really also extend to your ex, because you don't have as much of a financial need. Like things aren't as much of a struggle. And we have, with the use of technology, you have FaceTime, you have a lot of things. There's air travel is this time and place when we're talking about the show might not be the best example, but overall you can really get around a lot in this country and other countries, and so there are a lot of ways you can continually have a lot of frequent contact. You can keep that relationship good, and it improves the financial opportunities for the parent, which does benefit the child. And I think one of the biggest things, and I haven't really seen this, well, I probably have been doing this a long time, but you're not doing it to remove your child and make them further away from your ex. It's really in good faith to better everybody's life. I've had somewhere, when they were married, they both came from the same town. Let's say they're both from, I don't know, get my geography. They're both from Texas. So everybody's family's in Texas. And we've had clients where they're like, but his parents are there too. My parents are there. Like it will benefit the child because there's going to be a lot more family. And if he comes to visit, he has a place to stay. So you kind of think through all those things that then make our case stronger.
Mm. Oh, wow. Yeah, I wish we had more time for this one because this is important because as you said, I can see this happening in so many different industries, and Jacksonville is of course a military town, so it does apply to that. Anything else you want to add on this topic?
Just, what I said earlier, if moving without court approval or consent or don't do it because it is going to be so costly for you. I mean, if they call you on it and you end up getting served by your ex, and more likely than not, they will. And that legal battle, you've dug yourself a deep hole. So therefore, we've got to get you out just on level ground and then try to get you what you want which is relocation versus coming to us when you guys are on equal footing and let us help you move. And it's a question we always ask our clients when they're divorcing, because so many people live in our area that don't have the support system and family. We ask, do you want to stay here? Do you want to go back to where you guys, at least let's talk about it, because understand it doesn't get any easier. And part of what you agreed to in that original divorce, it's going to matter when you come back in 3 years and say, oh, hey, Heather, yeah, I do want to move. So it does affect your future. And, if you're thinking, hey, I might have this opportunity, or these are things that I would like to do and move, talk to an attorney sooner than later, because and then at least you understand, again, that risk benefit, you understand your options, or hey, if this or this happens, then I think this will help your case. That's valid, very valuable advice that I would recommend to anybody. Don't just move. Don't just move if you have children without agreement, and not just agreement in writing. In writing, you need that agreement.
Heather, it's always a pleasure.
It is indeed, Julie. And I know usually I tell our listeners to give us a call and reach out to us, but I know you'll follow up with that if they find themselves in a situation needing modification. We are here to help them.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Women Winning Divorce. We hope you found information to help you navigate your divorce. If you like our show, please take the time to subscribe and provide a 5-star review. If you need more information, please visit our website at womenwinningdivorce.com, where you will find previous episodes and other helpful content. Join us next week as we continue our journey of women winning divorce.